Good morning, children. This is Kristen with Wuthering Reader, coming in to review Severance by Ling. Now, this book came out in November of last year. This was my book of the month pick for December, and this is one I was really glad to have picked. There were actually a lot of good selections that month, but I went with this one because it is a mix of genres, and that is kind of a mix between post-apocalyptic and literary fiction. So now I'm here to review it. As you guys know, my 5-star system, I will have stars for different aspects of it, and we are going to go over those. This one got 4 stars, and we're going to talk about that. The first star that it earned was for plot, which was very interesting. Now, this book follows Candace Chen, who is a Chinese American that lives in New York. She has been orphaned and just kind of lives out on her own and throws herself into work. And it talks about her daily life and her relationships with other people, her advancement in job, and so on and so forth. On the other side, though, you get a post-apocalyptic story where she is with a group of survivors trying to find a safe place when a zombie apocalypse is happening. Now, this is something that I really liked about it because this book was sort of a lot of things, which was interesting. So it was sort of literary fiction, sort of a post-apocalyptic with sort of zombies. Now, the zombies in this book I thought were very unsettling in the way that they don't eat people or really know that people are there or attack people like regular zombies. It's more of a thing where once they are infected with this disease, which is the Shen fever, where what happens is whenever you are infected and you eventually end up dying from it, your zombie form kind of just stays in a routine until the end of time, until they're done rotting. I'm not sure, it hadn't gotten that far in there, but like it's very unsettling because you'll just see these withered away zombie-like creatures just sitting, setting a table, picking up the plates, setting the table again, and picking up the plate, setting the table again for like the rest of their existence, and they just stick in that routine, and it's very eerie, more in a psychological way than in a horror way, because no one's actually really in danger other than getting the fever, obviously. So it's these people trying to survive while kind of trying to figure out the cause of the fever. Though it does kind of touch into that, it doesn't quite go all the way. The fever is contracted through a fungus, and it doesn't really seem to kick in until you are sort of in a routine. That's kind of what it plays on, but it doesn't fully say for sure. The only star that this one has lost for me was really emotion. I wasn't terribly invested in any of the characters. They weren't very developed, but they were well written in the sense of what was going on, and I'm going to get to that later. Because although you are following the same character throughout the entire thing, there really isn't a ton of emotion that goes with it. Maybe it's just me, but I just didn't really click very well with the people and what was going on to where I particularly was able to feel any fear for them, any joy for them, or really anything like that. That could also be because of several reasons. I really had trouble pinpointing it exactly. But this one did not leave me very emotional. For some reason, I don't think it's supposed to. Though with importance, it did earn that star, mainly because it had a lot to say about identity. It had a lot to say of being comfortable with yourself, which is going to kind of play into my review of the characters, which is the other 2 stars that it earned. Mainly, this dealt a lot with identity. Our lead, Candace Chen, really doesn't have that. She doesn't really stick to her roots really well. Being an orphan, she's kind of separated from the rest of her family that are in China, who she hasn't seen since she was little. So she kind of just floats out there on her own, going with her friends, kind of doing what they're doing, without exactly having a personal identity. Now, this does play into the story more whenever it shows how she tries to throw herself into other things to make her identity instead of trying to form one of her own. She has a lot of different opinions, that change with the people that she meets. She has a lot of relationships in her life that she just kind of goes along with, that she doesn't really like, but she needs something to go along with, particularly with her boyfriends. It's mostly a very physical thing. She throws herself into her work, letting that be her all-consuming identity, to where whenever the end of the world happens and everyone leaves New York, she decides to stay and work. So that kind of identitylessness plays into the ending, where she is able to find a new identity within herself and a family, and something that she can hold on to. So with that, I think it did very well for the character. And a thing about young people today and how they look for these certain things to form their identity without actually being able to form their own. Maybe because they're unexperienced or not enough things have happened to them. They're just constantly trying to throw themselves into one thing, which kind of plays into a bit of a lost generation. With most coming of age stories, they focus on younger kids or teenagers coming into their own, having a situation happen to them where they have to grow up, where they have to do this. This more addresses the people that are stunted in that growth, and I think it does very well for that. And of course, the apocalypse is very representational of that aspect, because the people who don't get affected by it seem to be kind of the same way, where they don't really have that identity, that source of comfort, that thing that wants to make them keep repeating the same cycles over and over. And it becomes very skewed on whether or not that's exactly a good or a bad thing. Obviously in life today, that's a bad thing, but in this book, it actually helps you survive. So I think it shows that really, really well, and it's kind of the fear of people today that don't exactly want to form their identity quite yet, because they're afraid of getting sucked into that kind of routine. And I think that this book definitely shows that very well, which is why it got the stars on character and importance. I can definitely appreciate this book as a symbolic book. Like I said, as far as emotion goes, I didn't have much for the characters, for the very same reason I don't think I was supposed to. It's more of a symbol, it's more of a story that points out these problems with people. So Severance by Ling I think is a very important book. One I could definitely see going down as a classic for the ideas that it brings up. I haven't heard a lot of reviewers talking about this one yet, and I really hope that people do start reading this one more. It was excellent. Definitely recommend Severance by Ling Ma. Hope you all have a good day. Thanks for tuning in.